Says viewers and family. Thank you for tuning in to this session of Pastor Says. This week we have a real great message, and I dedicate it to all the mothers far and near, and hopefully that you will get something out of this message. I'll be coming from the New King James Version of the Bible, 2 Samuel chapter 21, verses 1 through 11. And the message is entitled, Until Raindrops Fall. Hello, family. Thank you for tuning back in to this episode of Pastor Says. We're going to dive right into Until Raindrops Fall. Keep your heart open and your mind free, and hear what the Spirit of the Lord is saying to you, the church. We're going to go right to chapter number 21, 2 Samuel, verses 1 through 11.
Now there was a famine in the days of David for 3 years, year after year. And David inquired of the Lord. And the Lord answered, It is because of Saul and his bloodthirsty house, because he killed the Gibeonites. So the king called the Gibeonites and spoke to them. Now the Gibeonites were not of the children of Israel, but of the remnant of the Amorites. The children of Israel had sworn protection to them, but Saul had sought to kill them in his zeal for the children of Israel and Judah. Therefore David said to the Gibeonites, What shall I do for you? And with what shall I make atonement, that you may bless the inheritance of the Lord? And the Gibeonites said to him, We will have no silver or gold from Saul or from his house, nor shall you kill any man in Israel for us. So he said, Whatever you say I will do for you. Then they answered the king, As for the man who consumed us and plotted against us, that we should be destroyed from remaining in any of the territories of Israel, let 7 men of his descendants be delivered to us, and we will hang them before the Lord in Gibeah of Saul, whom the Lord chose. And the king said, I will give them. But the king spared Mephibosheth, the son of Jonathan, the son of Saul, because of the Lord's oath that was between them, between David and Jonathan, the son of Saul. So the king took Armoni and Mephibosheth, the 2 sons of Rizpah, the daughter of Aiah, whom she bore to Saul, and the 5 sons of Michal, the daughter of Saul, whom she brought up for Adriel, the son of Barzillai the Maholathite. And he delivered them into the hands of the Gibeonites, and they hanged them on the hill before the Lord. So they fell, all 7 together, and were put to death in the days of harvest, in the first days, in the beginning of barley harvest. Now Rizpah, the daughter of Aiah, took sackcloth and spread it for herself on the rock, from the beginning of harvest until the late rains poured on them from heaven. And she did not allow the birds of the air to rest on them by day, nor the beasts of the field by night. And David was told what Rizpah, the daughter of Aiah, the concubine of Saul, had done.
What a mighty story that we have here. And one of the featured characters in this story that I like to focus in on is a woman, a mother, called Rizpah. Rizpah is an unsung, unheralded character in the Bible. She's not mentioned like Ruth and Naomi's and Sarah's and Deborah's of the Bible. But the Old Testament writers thought it fit to include her name in the chronicles of the 66 books of this Bible. Rizpah was a concubine to the first king of Israel, Saul. Rizpah had 2 sons by Saul. Rizpah had it going on. She had the ear of the king. She had the attention of the king. And as I said just a few seconds ago, she bore 2 sons to the king. Rizpah had her hair done every day and her pedicure and manicure done. Her sons had servants that attended to them 24/7. But when we arrive at 2 Samuel chapter 21, verses 1 through 11, we see how fast and easy Rizba's life changed. Our lives can change overnight. And now we see right now a problem that she's dealing with. See, there's two types of problems. There's external problems and there's internal problems. External problems are like when we had the freeze out here or when the hurricane season hit. We can fix those problems with money and still move forward. But when you have an eternal problem, like a family problem, you just can't cut it off and walk away and go away. External problems are like if I have a problem with somebody on my job. One thing I know, at 5 o'clock, I'm going home. If I have a problem with a church member, I can move my membership to another church. External problems. But when you have a problem with your children, when you have a problem with your wife, when you have a problem with your husband, when you have a problem with your nieces and nephews, you just can't walk away. You can say you can, but it's still that tentacle that's connecting you to your biological family. And we see in this story that Rizba has a problem, internal problem. I'm going to go to verse 1. Quickly, I'll put on my spiritual sandals and run through it. And hopefully you will see something that would bless your soul mightily. Now there was a famine in the days of David for 3 years, year after year, and David inquired of the Lord. And the Lord answered, "It is because of Saul and his bloodthirsty house, because he killed the Gibeonites." Let me break that down for you. Saul is dead. And now King David sits on the throne of Israel. And there's a problem in the land. What is the problem? A drought. It has not rained in 3 years. The first year, David did not inquire of the Lord about the drought. The second year, he did not inquire of the Lord about the drought. But when the economy starts going down the drain, he got on his knees and started praying to his God and asking God, "Why, God? Why am I going through what I'm going through?" See, it's nothing like trouble to drive you to your knees, isn't it? And David was on his knees after 3 years of a drought. And some of us have been experiencing droughts in our own lives, in our own professions, in our own families. And David cried out to God and asked God, "Why, God?" Have you ever cried out and asked God, why? Why is my marriage the way it is? Why are things going the way that they are going? Why is my health going the way it is? Why don't people seem to understand me? Why, Lord? Why, Lord? Have you ever asked the same question that King David asked? And the Lord spoke to him. And he said, "It's because, David, there's sin in the camp. And for sin, there's consequences." And I want to unpack that so that you can understand just where I'm coming from. See, years earlier, when Joshua was bringing the children of Israel with Moses, Moses is dead. He inherited the leadership. And he's getting ready to cross the Jordan River with the children of Israel. And the Gibeonites were afraid of the children of Israel because they had heard about the great exploits that God had did for his people. So they made a covenant with Joshua and the children of Israel that they would serve them and Israel would not harm them. And God sealed the covenant between Israel and the Gibeonites. Well, down the line, when Saul took over as king many years later, he got this great idea to exterminate the Gibeonites, to kill them all. He cared less about the covenant between God and the Gibeonites that Joshua made. So what does that tell you? David had nothing to do with violating the covenant that God had with the Gibeonites. But yet, David and all the people of Israel were suffering. See, sin has consequences. And sometimes, and a lot of times, we suffer not because it's something I did. It's not because of something you did. It's because of something somebody else did that you are connected with. There's unwarranted sin and warranted sin. Warranted sin is where you deserve what you're getting. Unwarranted sin is that you had nothing to do with it, but because you was connected with that person, it's falling on you. It fell on Rizpah now. Rizpah had nothing to do with it. She had nothing to contribute to Saul killing the Gibeonites and trying to wipe out a whole generation of people. But because her and her sons are connected to Saul, guess what? They have to experience the fallout from it. I'll give you an example. You and I was not in the Garden of Eden, was we? Our first parents was Adam and Eve. And we know what happened. Adam sinned. Eve sinned. And for thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of years, we have all suffered because of the sins of our first parents. The Bible said that you were born in sin, shaped in iniquity. We have a sinful nature. Do you know it's easy to sin than it is to live for God because of the flesh suit that we're in? Rizpah. So David goes to the Gibeonites. He's trying to make it right. And he asks the Gibeonite leaders, what can I do for you to rectify the whole situation? I can give you silver. I can give you gold. I can give you resources. Anything you want, ask for it. And they said to King David, we don't want your money. We don't want your silver. We don't want your resources. What we want is the 7 sons of Saul that are still living. Turn them over to us and let us hang them on a hill that everybody can see. And the Bible says in verse 6, David said, I will give them. So 2 of the sons, y'all, belong to Rizpah. Rizpah couldn't do anything. She couldn't break him out. She couldn't talk the king out of it. She couldn't bribe. She couldn't steal him. See, there's some things that mothers can't do for her child. I had a great mother. God rest her soul. There were some things that she could not get me out of. But I tell you this, it did not stop her, and it did not stop Rizpah from supporting her sons. That was one time Rizpah wished she was God, that she could get them out of a situation that they had really nothing to do with. So they took her 2 sons and the other 5 sons. They marched them up a hill overlooking Jerusalem. And they put them on the gallows. And they hung Rizpah's children. They hung Rizpah's children. But look what Rizpah did, verse 9. And he delivered them into the hands of the Gibeonites, and they hung them on the hill before the Lord. So they, all 7, fell together and were put to death in the days of the harvest, in the first days, in the beginning of the barley harvest. Now check this out. Now Rizpah, verse 10, the daughter of Ai, took sackcloth, spread it for herself on a rock from the beginning of harvest until the late rains poured on them from heaven. And she did not allow the birds of the air to rest on them by day, nor the beasts of the field by night. The Bible says that Rizpah, this mother who loved her 2 sons, who 2 sons had nothing to do with what their daddy did, changed her garments, y'all, and put on her war clothes, put on her prayer clothes. See, that's what mothers do for the children that they raise, and the children that they birth, and the children that they push through into the realm called life. She took off her raiment of silk and fine linen and purple and put on something uncomfortable called sackcloth. It made you itch. And she doused herself with ashes, man, signifying that she was grieving. And she took a spread of sackcloth, and she found a rock. You have to give kudos to the women of the world, the Rizpahs of the world, that have the inner strength to be able to deal with what she's dealing with, and to be able to deal with what you have had to deal with being a single parent, or even being a married parent, but your husband is MIA. Rizpah had inner strength. She had an inner strength about her, that she was not going to allow the devil to send adversity that was going to consume her. Rizpah. And I'm not talking about the inner strength that you got to pop your gums and shake your head and wag your fingers at people. No, she didn't do none of that. She found a rock. And all of us know who that rock is. He's the rock of my soul. He's the anchor of your soul. He said, on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of heaven shall not prevail. Rizpah laid on a rock. My mama laid on a rock. I was a little boy in Azores, Portugal, and I was walking by my mama's room, and she was on her knees talking out loud and tears rolling down her face. And I said, my mama crying, but there's nobody there that she's talking to. So I ran in and asked mama, was she okay? And mama said, I'm good, baby. I said, mama, who you talking to? She said, I'm talking to God. My mama was laying on her rock, y'all. My mama was Rizpah, crying out for her child and for her children, man. I understand that now that I'm older. And not only did she lay on that rock, but she would not allow the buzzards, the vultures, and the beasts to consume her babies. Can you imagine this one woman, day and night? And let me tell you how long it was. It wasn't a week that she was on that rock. It wasn't a month that she was on that rock. She was on that rock for 5 to 6 months, laying out on the rock, crying out to her God, fighting off the beasts and the vultures. See, when you become a praying brother, when you become a praying sister, when you are a praying mother, you would find that you can do things that you thought in the natural you could never do. Look at this woman up on this hill, fighting off the buzzards. People would say, Rizba, you might as well give up. Look at them, they're swelling up. They're decaying. They're smelling. And Rizba said, you can leave if you want to, but they're my babies. And I'm not going anywhere till I hear from God. And she continued to put her life on hold, like a lot of mothers have. You have put your life on hold because of your children. And Rizba was the same way. She said, I'm not going anywhere. They might not look like nothing to you, but they're still mine. That's what people say about some of your kids now, ain't they? Oh, she's pregnant now. She's 15. She ain't gonna be nothing now. Oh, okay, well, he in jail. That's all he gonna do. Like he gonna be like his uncle. But Rizba say, yeah, she may be pregnant. He may be in jail. He may have HIV. Say what you want, but he's still mine. And I'm not leaving this rock until God answers my cry. And every day and every night for 5 months, this woman, Rizba, this woman fought off the beasts of the field. See, vultures, tell you how vultures work. Vultures work, they hover over a carcass. They don't come down until they see signs of no life. See, that's how Satan does. Satan hovers. Satan hovers. And when he sees that you're about ready to give up, and you have given up on God and given up on your dreams and given up on your vision and given up on your marriage and given up on your family, that's when he comes in like a vulture to destroy you. But here's this woman, this mother, who's saying, no, 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 no. They may be hanging from a noose. They may be hanging on a rope. But you're not going to take my babies, and I'm going to stay on this rock until you do what's right about them. You know what was right? What was right was Jewish tradition and law was saying that if there was any bodies hanging, they had to be taken down by sundown. They had hung her babies and walked off and forgot about them like they wasn't nothing. And Rizba say, I ain't going nowhere till you do right by me and my boys. And day in and day out, Rizba cried out to the Lord. She would get up and swat at the vultures trying to come in and devour those decomposing bodies that were swelled up, and she probably couldn't even tell one from the other. See, you got to fight off some things. You got to beat away some things that's trying to come against your purpose, that's trying to come against your vision, that's trying to come against what God has promised you. You got to be like Rizba. You got to beat it off and not let it consume you. And for 5 months, this mother refused to leave. For 5 months, she put her life on hold. And some of you have done the same thing. I'm going to encourage you to hang on in there. I'm encouraging you to stay on that rock. I'm encouraging you to don't lose hope. Because sooner or later, the rainfall is going to come. And the rainfall, the raindrops, signifies the blessings of God. The raindrops will wash away your hurt, will wash away your tears, will wash away your fear, will wash away your disappointment. The raindrops will come. God promised you that. And one thing that I know, especially down south, you can always smell the rain before it comes. And I'm here to tell somebody out there now, smell the rain. It's about to come. And it's about to pour. And verse 10 says that Rizpah, the daughter of Aiah, took a sackcloth, spread it out for herself on a rock from the beginning of the harvest until the late rains poured from heaven. After 5 months of laying on that rock, beating off the beast, this woman, she wasn't a big woman, small woman, but she had purpose and she was driven. Don't mess with them kind of women, because they are purpose driven by God. And after 5 months of her denying herself, the rain came. You remember there had been a drought for 3 years. But because of Rizpah, and because of her laying on the rock like she did, the raindrops begin to fall. And at the same time, check this out, and I'm in my conclusion. At the same time that the rain was falling in the land and on Rizpah, there was a knock at the chamber of King David. And David said, "Come in." And they said, "King David, I have a message for you. Did you know that that woman, Rizpah, has been on that hill for 5 months in sackcloth and ashes, beating away the beasts of the field and the vultures and the birds of the air to keep them from her children?" David said, "Rizpah?" They said, "Yes, my king." David said, "Those boys are still hanging 5 months later and haven't been taken down?" The servant dropped his head, the messenger, and said, "No, my king." He said, "Give me a pen. Give me my scroll." And he wrote a decree that day that the rain was coming, that all 7 of them boys should be taken down and given a proper burial. So what am I saying? Stay on the rock till God answers you. Stay on the rock till your rain comes. Stay on your rock until your voice has been heard by the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, God himself. And now Rizpah had closure to something that was wrong. And they buried the boys. And God is getting ready to bury some of your stinking stuff, some of your drought stuff. And the rain is about to pour into your life. Thank you for tuning in to this session of Pastor Says. Do us a favor. Subscribe and like our Facebook. Do a comment. Let us know what you think. We're always looking to get better to serve you. So be blessed until next time of Pastor Says. See you then.